dive into authentic conversations about ourselves and our community, exploring topics that uplift and inspire us, from personal growth to social change. So grab your teacup and get ready to join the conversation.
Gonna jump right on in it and see what's all to be sipped about Diddy's first day of trial. Like, does anybody know the races of the jurors? I do know that there are 8 men and 4 women. I just don't know if they're black or white, Asian, Caucasian, Mexican, European, French, Spaniard. I don't know. So if anybody knows what the races of the jurors are, can you please drop that in the chat? Also, please remember to like, subscribe, and drop your teacups as well. So I'm going to see if I can find what the races of the jurors are for Diddy's trial. If you guys know, please be some teacups and spill that in the chat, please. What are the races of the jurors in the Diddy trial? Who knows? Okay, we know that it's mostly male, and there are a few hip hop fans. This is according to MSN, Business Insider. So the jury for Sean Puffy Combs is mostly male. There are some hip hop heads on the trial or the juror. There are 8 men and 4 women. They said that they listen to R&B and or hip hop. These New Yorkers are among the 8 men, 4 women panel of jurors, a scientist, a massage therapist, and a deli clerk. Okay. Who are set to determine Sean Diddy Combs' fate in his criminal sex trafficking case. Combs, the hip-hop mogul and businessman, who was once on the cusp of becoming a billionaire, I believe he was a billionaire in some essence of time, faces up to life in prison if convicted at trial of all the charges against him. So the 12 jurors plus 6 alternates were seated on Monday today following a jury selection process that unfolded over a week in a Manhattan federal courtroom. 4 of the jurors plus 6 selected for the trial, which is expected to run about 2 months, said during the process known as voir dire, that they liked hip hop or R&B music. So they've been selected. There are 8 men, 4 women. One of them is a 30-year-old woman from the Bronx, who works in the deli counter at the grocery chain Grissetti's, said that her mother was arrested and convicted over 20 years ago for stealing money from a bank. Okay. She worked in the bank and they caught her and she got arrested. She previously told the court. Okay. All right. Another juror, a retired 68-year-old man from Westchester, wrote in his jury questionnaire that he had viewed the infamous security camera footage in which Combs appears to beat Cassie Ventura, an R&B singer who was his girlfriend at the time. Ventura is the prosecution's key witness. Like I said, sippers, nobody, you're not going to find nobody that hasn't saw the camera footage of Combs beating Cassie. I saw it 10 times just this morning, watching it all over the news coverage, right? So, and Ventura Cassie is the prosecution's key witness, and jurors are expected to be shown that footage at the trial, among other graphic videos. Okay, so my bad, y'all. I'm not even sharing my screen with my people. 1 second. I'm so sorry. Ugh. Okay, now you guys can see my screen. All right, let's continue reading. So, amongst other graphic videos. So, like we all know, like you have to have some type of very fuck-wittable evidence for the feds to give you fed time. There's usually video, audio. You can't just testify against somebody, and because most people like Diddy, you can't just testify. You just can't say Diddy did something. Diddy is way too powerful and influential, and backed by a lot of popular demand for you to just say, "Oh, Diddy ate me." Okay, Diddy ate me, and you lock Diddy up for the rest of his life in a federal penitentiary. Okay, you have to have some type of very fuck-wittable evidence, some very stickable evidence, okay, believable evidence. So the feds usually come with, audio, la-da-da. So, of course, with key witnesses, things like that. So, yes, that's where Cassie's going to play, the biggest role. Oh, this damn train. Okay, so anyway, that juror also said that he had a problem viewing graphic videos showing violence, but would force himself to watch if needed. I don't know. This is going to be a good juror for Diddy. I just don't. I don't see it. I don't think that he's gonna, take any of the evidence entered by the prosecution lightly, at all. You know what I'm saying? I think he's gonna take it very hard and be very critical of Diddy, because he's saying he has a problem viewing graphic videos showing violence, but would force himself to watch if needed. That's like me saying, I have a problem. Like, I don't really like watching horror. I don't, but I will force myself to watch it if I think it might be a good scary watch, and whatever have you. But I don't necessarily like them. Like, I kind of have a problem with a lot of them. So I don't think that that's going to be a good juror for Diddy. I wouldn't be biased, he goes on to say, and to be honest, I'd have to make myself look at it, said the man who worked for Verizon for 40 years. Okay. So like a lot of these people are like everyday comers and goers. They're not like other professional businessmen of Diddy's colleagues. Okay. I haven't seen one person yet that's even a millionaire that's going to be testifying, that's going to be on the juror panel for Diddy. Okay. At the end of the jury selection, Combs' defense attorney, Mark Agnifilo, said prosecutors had used their preemptory strikes to unfairly keep Black members out of the jury. Ooh. So that's going to answer a lot of questions for us sippers about what are the races of the jurors for Diddy, because right now we really don't know what's going on inside that courtroom. A couple of people are using AI to speculate, and I don't want that. I want to know. I want to talk real tea. I want to only sip real tea, right? Ever. So not for nothing. That just told us a lot, though. Okay, that's what it's like. So let's continue to read on and see if we can't get more tea out of this. So He previously argued that the Justice Department had targeted Combs because of his race. By our count, the government struck 7 Black people, which we believe amounts to a pattern, Agnifilo told the judge. The prosecutor, Maureen Comey, detailed the reasons she struck each juror, making the case for each one. One attended the same high school as Combs, making him susceptible to unconscious bias. Right? Okay. You don't know, she might have wanted to be with that nigga back in the day or something. You don't know. And now she's like, oh, Combs. Be fanning out. We don't need her. Another talked about how some accusers would jump on a bandwagon, okay, to accuse famous people of abuse, making it possible she'd be biased against victims, okay? Comey said. The judge ultimately ruled that Combs' legal team couldn't prove prosecutors tried to exclude jurors based on race. So, okay. And that gives us a lot, though. They already, they came up with the jurors. There's 12 selected and 6 that are standbys, right? So, from what I'm understanding, there aren't too many African-American people on the jury. Okay, on the jurors team. Stand. So, whatever. Jurors booth. Where they sit at. Okay. Meanwhile, Combs' family members, including his children and mother, filled 2 rows of benches in the courtroom on Monday. They were seated behind the defense table where Combs sat wearing a light-colored sweater and eyeglasses. Now, when y'all have known Diddy to wear some goddamn eyeglasses, if you know and can show, drop a picture. If you can drop pictures in our chats, I don't know. Email me a picture of Diddy with some regular glasses on. Because I've never seen Diddy wear any type of prescriptions. At times, he blew kisses to his family. How sweet. Combs was arrested and indicted in September on federal charges of racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He has strongly denied all charges and all allegations of sexual abuse. Prosecutors allege that for decades, Combs led a criminal enterprise that involved the sex trafficking of women, Ventura, and an anonymous Jane Doe. Now, I'm also understanding, Sippers, that they're going to allow 4 testimonies from supposed alleged victims, okay? We already know the identity of one, which would be Cassie, right? But the rest of the girls, and I think it might be a man, they're going to be behind the blur. Like, they're going to be able to testify against Diddy from behind a curtain. Okay, their identities will be remain sealed, remain, unidentifiable by Diddy in case of any type of retaliation against these does. Combs is 55, is also accused of coercing these women plus another 2 into sex through a pattern of threats. Sorry, guys, my clam chowder is trying to come up. Excuse me. Into sex through a pattern of threats and violence. At the core of the Combs indictment are allegations that the I'll Be Missing You rapper organized elaborate sex encounters that he called freakouts. Mm-hmm. In court papers, prosecutors described the events as days-long drug-fueled sex performances that Combs directed and often recorded. So I hope they have some of these recordings. Now, I also know that TMZ has said Mr. Harvey Levin talked about how he saw a video of Diddy, and Diddy was not violently coercing people to do anything. He was more of the Pied Piper person that was instructing, and like orchestrating, leading the band type thing, but it wasn't as if the people were not wanting to go along with what he wanted them to do. Okay, so I heard that on TMC, and that they saw a video got leaked, and that's what they saw. It was very nasty, but nonetheless, it wasn't criminal. So I'm very intrigued to see not necessarily see, but hear if they got some evidence that could be tangible evidence. You know what I'm saying? Not just word of mouth. And over the course of the trial, jurors are said to be shown hours of graphic sex video. Oh, Lordy, Lordy, Lordy. That prosecutor said Combs recorded over the year. Oh, they got it, girl. They got it, girl. You got it, girl. Including footage prosecutors allege was taken without his accuser's consent. Lordy, Lordy. Now, this is the evidence that I'm talking about. Okay? That's how you incriminate someone. That's how you, you know what I'm saying? Like, indict someone, rather. That's how you indict them. Okay? That's how you get somebody on a federal RICO charge. Evidence. Real evidence. Some of the footage depicts freak-offs. My. My goodness gracious. It's going down. Okay? It's going down. Let's go ahead and jump on over to some live footage. And I really want to thank everybody for sympathy with Tanisha today. We're on the first day of the Diddy trial. The Diddy trial has begun. I hope all of you are having a blessed day, being safe. I hope your Mother's Day was very loving in all aspects. I hope you guys weren't sad. And, you know, I'm also a person that no longer has their mother in the physical form, but I have her in the spirit, okay? So I'm doing my best. It's been like 12 years since my mother, no, it's been like 14 years since my mother died. And I'm, you know, just doing my best to, you know, have a better, happier existence around these times of years. Okay, girl. So, where was I sipping tea? Hold on, let me see. Earlier from Diddy. Right here. It was right here. So we're going to pay some homage to Law and Order. I'm going to get, because a lot of people have just been watching the courthouse for hours and hours. Like, you're not going to see Diddy walk out of there. What are you waiting on? Are y'all waiting on somebody to come out the courthouse? What did I miss? But anyway, you know, just to be nosy, want to see the kids and his mama and everybody else, which I might show some of their facial expressions as they walked into the courthouse as well. Let's see. Okay. Let me back it up. So it does appear that they do have some tweets from like somebody sitting around on the inside around the courthouse, inside the courthouse listening. So okay. That's outside the courthouse. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. Girl, I'm not even. Hold on. I'm like, where's the coverage at? Stop playing with it. Okay, hold on. Oh, everything. Okay, let me turn it off because I can hear myself. Okay.
Think this case is going to go as
There
we
we
lay out what happened.
Now
in
you
opening
guys should
statements.
be able.
Your thoughts on maybe.
Now you guys should be able to hear and see very clearly. We're going to sip some tea from Law and Crime as we usually do because they cover all the best stories and have some of the best tea to sip. Okay, listen in.
Who is winning the day so far? By the way, we have a poll up right now about whether or not Sean Combs will take the stand. Will he testify? What do you think? Took the stand in his last trial all those years ago, but it was a very different kind of case. This is a very different kind of prosecution. Two different narratives today, right? The prosecutor, Emily Johnson, essentially described Combs as a monster, stating that this jury will hear about all kinds of alleged crimes and the team who helped him commit them. The defense, Tenny Garagos, explaining that this case is about love, jealousy, money, and even acknowledging that there are episodes of domestic violence, but it's not sex trafficking, it's not racketeering. So right now I want to bring on Elizabeth Milner, Law and Crimes reporter, who was in that courthouse today for the opening statements, day one. Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming out really quickly to talk about this. So first I want you to set the stage. The whole scene out there. You had almost trouble getting into the courthouse today. Talk to us about what you're seeing.
Oh yeah, I crashed out a little bit this morning, Jesse, thinking I was not about to get inside that courtroom just because of just how crazy it is. I mean, you can just see the lines just going all the way back with media. It's going all the way back just with the public, just so some people could either, one, watch the trial, get a glimpse of Diddy's family members coming in and outside of the courtroom, and even as well as see as his attorneys, whose members include Brian Steele, Mark Agnifilo, Mark Garagos playing in kind of that defensive advisory type of role. So it's crazy out here, especially, you know, it's Diddy, it's high profile celebrities, it's salacious allegations. Then on top of that, he's facing a lot of time behind bars, so you can understand why so many people of the public wanted to be here and wanted to get here super early so that way they could attend. I even heard somebody was standing in line and was auctioning off how much that they would give to somebody else in line for up to $500, $600. So that's just a lot of people here. Now, as far as who was inside the courtroom today, still is a lot of famous faces, or well, let me not say famous faces, but a lot of people that we are definitely familiar with here at Law and Crime. You have Mark Garagos in the courtroom, Karen Agnifilo, who is the wife of Mark Agnifilo, who's also representing Luigi as well too. You had Little Rod inside the courtroom today, and he's one who had filed one of the many civil claims against Diddy as well too. He came in probably, I would say, maybe a little like 8:30-ish, kind of came in with his sunglasses, 2 chains on, as well as his attorney was inside that courtroom as well too. You have all of Diddy's children, with the exception of his youngest daughter, Love, were inside that courtroom. So that includes Quincy Brown, Justin Combs, Christian Combs, Delilah Combs, Chance Combs, Jesse Combs. Chance's mother was inside that courtroom. Diddy's mother was inside that courtroom. The daughter of Diddy's youngest daughter was inside that courtroom. And then you have the twins' caregiver, who is also best friends with Kim Porter as well too. So a lot of people were inside that courtroom as well for just opening statements, just to get this jury selected, because it went down from 43 to 18 today. And so a lot of people were inside that courtroom. It was body to body, and what can you expect? It's Diddy's first day of trial, so this was, you know, just a little bit of what we were expecting today, but it's crazy out here.
And I will encourage everybody to check out what you're posting on X, Twitter, because earlier today you actually posted that you saw Rodney Little Rod Jones, one of the first people to sue Sean Combs. He was outside the courthouse. We were always expecting who would end up showing up during the course of this trial. Talk to us about the jury. Who is this jury? What can you tell about how they're reacting so far to opening statements? I mean, NBC has reported you have one juror who's a 69-year-old male, another juror who's a 31-year-old male, another one 51-year-old male. You have a 42-year-old female, and they have different numbers to them. But what are you determining based on the jury? What's the makeup, and how are they positioning? How are they reacting to the opening statement so far?
Yeah, well, kind of a hard question to answer, I should say, just because of where I was sitting inside the gallery. It was really hard to kind of see each and every single one of their faces when both sides were presenting opening statements. But what I did see from being inside that gallery was some people jotting notes, some people just very much intently listening to both Emily Johnson for the prosecution as well as Tony Garagos for the defense. As far as the makeup goes, I kind of just took their jury numbers and compared them to the notes that I took last week when I was here for jury selection. You have one who's a scientist, one whose brother is a security guard. He knew Diddy was arrested but didn't know the charges. You have one person who's part of a union job. He works for the Department of Corrections. Another person who is now retired but previously used to work at Verizon. You had another person whose friend is a detective, son is a security guard. But, you know, as far as the defense was kind of making their objections today as far as jury selection goes, and, you know, just kind of the objections they made that, you know, the government was striking 7 black jurors, that type of thing. There were still black jurors that are going to be serving on this panel who are going to be making making the decisions going into those deliberations. So from what I saw of the jury makeup as a whole, it really was a diverse group of men and women of all different ages, all different walks of life as well too.
So we hear some commentary in the back right there. Obviously,
do y'all see the man in the back? What is he saying? He said the only thing Sean Combs is guilty of is what, sir?
Today still is a lot of famous faces, or let me not say famous faces, but a lot of people that we are definitely familiar with here at Law and Crime. You have Mark Garagos in the courtroom, Karen Agnifilo, who is the wife of Mark Agnifilo, who's also representing Luigi as well too. You had Little Rod inside the courtroom today, and he's one who had filed one of the many civil claims against Diddy as well too. He came in probably, I would say, maybe a little like 8:30-ish, kind of came in with his sunglasses, 2 chains on, as well as his attorney was inside that courtroom as well too. You have all of Diddy's children, with the exception of his youngest daughter, Love, were inside that courtroom. So that includes Quincy Brown, Justin Combs, Christian Combs, Delilah Combs, Chance Combs, Jesse Combs. Chance's mother was inside that courtroom. Diddy's mother was inside that courtroom. The daughter of Diddy's youngest daughter was inside that courtroom. And then you have the twins' caregiver, who is also best friends with Kim Porter as well too. So a lot of people were inside that courtroom as well for just opening statements, just to get this jury selected, because it went down from 43 to 18 today. And so a lot of people were inside that courtroom. It was body to body. And what can you expect? It's Diddy's first day of trial. So this was, you know, just a little bit of what we were expecting today. But it's crazy out here.
And I will encourage everybody to check out what you're posting on X, Twitter. Because earlier today you actually posted that you saw Rodney Little Rod Jones, one of the first people to sue Sean Combs. He was outside the courthouse. We were always expecting who would end up showing up during the course of this trial. Talk to us about the jury. Who is this jury? What can you tell about how they're reacting so far to opening statements? I mean, NBC has reported you have one juror who's a 69-year-old male, another juror who's a 31-year-old male, another one 51-year-old male. You have a 42-year-old female, and they have different numbers to them. But what are you determining based on the jury? What's the makeup, and how are they positioning? How are they reacting to the opening statement so far?
Yeah, well, kind of a hard question to answer, I should say, just because of where I was sitting inside the gallery. It was really hard to kind of see each and every single one of their faces when both sides were presenting opening statements. But what I did see from being inside that gallery was some people jotting notes, some people just very much intently listening to both Emily Johnson for the prosecution as well as Tony Garagos for the defense. But as far as the makeup goes, I kind of just took their jury numbers and compared them to the notes that I took last week when I was here for jury selection. You have one who's a scientist, one whose brother is a security guard. He knew Diddy was arrested but didn't know the charges. You have one person who's part of a union job. He works for the Department of Corrections. Another person who is now retired but previously used to work at Verizon. You had another person whose friend is a detective, son is a security guard. But, you know, as far as the defense was kind of making their objections today as far as jury selection goes, and, you know, just kind of the objections they made that, you know, the government was striking 7 black jurors, that type of thing. There were still black jurors that are going to be serving on this panel who are going to be making making the decisions.
So we heard that, right, sippers? Remember, when you come in, Like the video, and please subscribe. We're really close to getting our 1,000 subscribers. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, okay? They're gonna be black jurors for Sean. Okay. Now, what type? We got black people, we got niggas, and we have uppity black people. Okay. We have our prudes. Okay. We have just like, every other race does. So I wonder what type of black people we're gonna be, seeing up on the jury panel. But they're going to be black people. I wonder if they're women or if they're men or if it's a mixture. There's only 4 women that are going to be on the jury panel. 4 women.
Going into those deliberations. So from what I saw of the jury makeup as a whole, it really was a diverse group of men and women of all different ages, all different walks of life as well, too.
So we hear some commentary in the back right there. Obviously, I think there's going to be a lot of commentary when it comes to this case. But Elizabeth, we counted up right now. I believe as we're looking into this, we're counting up how many men there are. I believe there's 8 men, 4 women on this jury, all different ages. None of them younger than 30 years old. Take that for what it is. A little bit of older individuals as well. But I think it's really interesting when you talk about what we saw today with opening statements, right? And by the way, just to reiterate something that you mentioned before, the first argument we heard from the defense today was saying that the prosecution, they raised what's called a Batson challenge to their preemptory challenges, saying you're striking jurors based on race, which is improper. The judge didn't side with it. They got a jury selected. Talk about opening statements. I want to start with the prosecution. Emily Johnson, what was the main theme of today, and did you learn something new? And Elizabeth, you're going to have to talk a little bit louder because that guy behind you is incredibly loud. So what was the theme of Emily Johnson's opening statement, and did you learn anything new? Anybody that might testify?
Yeah, so, obviously we've been following this case from the beginning, from the time that Cassie had first dropped her civil lawsuits against Diddy. And so a lot of the stuff that we were listening to from Emily Johnson was expected, right? She starts off with saying, this is Sean Combs. He's a cultural icon, a businessman. He's larger than life. But then she went and kind of talked about the defendant's crimes, the defendant being Diddy, that went past 20 years, kidnapping, allegations of arson.
Girl, Diddy looked like Uncle Ben. How long he been in jail? Girl, 9 months, and did him a very great injustice, girl. Oh, Diddy. He looked old and face all sunk in, girl. Did he look bad? Ooh.
Allegations of drug trafficking, sex crimes, obstruction. They were talking about one specific night where the defendant was on the hunt for girlfriend Cassie. So I was pretty surprised there that they just went out of the gates and already had just named her. I was assuming when she were going to be taking the stand, that's when the jurors would know her name, and that's when she would be introduced as, alleged victim number 1. But the government came out and just automatically just named her. They talked about the incident where Diddy found out Cassie was seeing another man, and that Diddy took his gun and his bodyguard, and Diddy threatened to allegedly kill this man that Cassie was with. Emily Johnson talked about how he had beat Cassie so brutally that he also had to take control of her. He kept videos of Cassie sleeping with escorts and threatened to use them against her. These are the types of things we had already known and were already kind of painted out inside those indictments that the government had written up in that type of sort. Diddy referring himself as a king, which is kind of ironic because he has a giant king crown on the back of his neck. Emily Johnson spoke about the defendant using his inner circle to manipulate women that for a while he watched, how his bodyguards kind of played, or bodyguards as well as employees kind of played a role into this alleged RICO conspiracy as well too, and she made it a point to say this case is not about a celebrity's private sex preferences, because that was something that the defense definitely kind of chalked it up to being just, that he lived an alternative lifestyle, that type of sort, and we'll talk about that more in a second. While there has been a lot of reports about victim 3 and where her whereabouts are or anything like that, the defense didn't talk about alleged victim number 3. Instead, they kept it pretty short and to the point. They talked about Cassie, they talked about Jane, who we presume to be the other alleged victim. In this case, the government was talking about, the freak offs being also named Wild King Nights, something that we had also known about, as well as even just simply as, hotel nights as well, too. Allegations of flying escorts across state lines, out of the country, into the country, that type of thing, that Diddy had demands to for the staff to set up his rooms in advance, lighting, lube, cash for escorts, drugs for both Diddy and the women that were participating in these types of events. Women had to dress in lingerie, had to wear white nails, tall heels, something that Cassie had pointed out in her civil lawsuit that was later settled. Talking about the drug use. Then they went into kind of, the allegations specifically geared towards Cassie and just how, the defendant had met Cassie. They had a 17-year age difference. Cassie was initially given a 10-album deal, and obviously that never happened as far as putting out a whole bunch of different albums and that type of sort. And so these were types of things that we had already known about. I think some of the more interesting points also go to Jane, as far as the other alleged victim. She was a single mom. She met Diddy around 2020 when Diddy was single, when Jane was single, but Diddy was seeing other people. Diddy introduced Jane to the freak-offs, and she had tried one just to kind of make him happy, and then just kind of kept going into this repetitive cycle of doing these freak-offs, wild hotel nights, that type of sort, just to kind of appease him. That Jane didn't want to do these freak-offs, and that she had tried at even one point to hire men on her own that worked in the porn industry so she could pick the men. Diddy made her, these escorts not wear condoms when they, allegedly participated in these types of activities. So these were just kind of the big things that were pointed out as far as the government. And Jesse, do you want me to go into the defense? Because the defense was pretty interesting as well, too.
Before you go into the defense, as I was reading about the reporting today, it was the first confirmation that Cassandra Ventura's victim one in this case. We always guessed it.
Well, we knew that. And let's talk some tea right now on Cassie Ventura being the first alleged victim to testify against Diddy. I hear that's happening on Wednesday. I'm going to do my best. I'm not guaranteeing absolutely anything, but I'm going to give you my Girl Scouts honor that I will do my best to be up here to sip tea with y'all as much as I can on the Diddy stuff. So if I'm not here tomorrow, Wednesday, that's when she's supposed to testify against Diddy. I want to be here for that, definitely. And I will also, bring back points on what happened on Tuesday. Like on days that I can't make the, days that they're having trial for Diddy. Then when I do air, I will come up with the points if they're valid and, points that need to be sipped about, sipping that tea on, then we'll talk about them. So let me get into Cassie, right? She's up to testify, like I believe on Wednesday she'll start. I wonder how long she'll go. I know that Cassie needs to play this very, 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 very smart. She's already won her civil suit, right? If in the upper extent of $40,000 or $30,000, $1,000 million, right? She got like 30 million from Diddy. So now she needs to play this as smart as possible. Diddy's already angry that he paid her 30 million. Then he got turned around, lost a Griagio deal or whatever, however have you. And I think Ciroc also went off the table. Then I believe Revolt kind of started to fall by the wayside, right? So Diddy's deal endorsements and things like that are very slim. Plus now Diddy's fighting these cases. Fans done raided his house. His kids are getting their cars repoed. Diddy's, getting down there to R. Kelly type of money, right? So say Cassie doesn't get up there and give it her complete all about what all she, encountered from the time she was with Diddy and so have you. You see what I'm saying? And Diddy slips through the cracks and gets out and comes for Cassie in some type of way. That's going to be the end all to be all. So all I'm saying is So let me know how y'all feel about this, sippers. Cassie needs to get up on that stand and make herself appear, and everybody else that was ever involved in anything criminal with her, with Diddy, like it's the worst case scenario you ever want to envision somebody ever having to live through in their entire life. Okay? So Diddy doesn't potentially slip through the cracks on her behalf, right? Cassie needs to get up on that stand and give her very best Academy Award winning Oscar field performance. So the judge will, oh God, Cassie's pregnant, y'all. Cassie will be, at the time of testifying against Diddy, pregnant with her third child by her husband she's currently married to. Okay, Cassie is very much pregnant right now. Very much pregnant right now. Okay, 1 second, guys. Okay, sippers, thanks for holding. Cassie's very much pregnant right now. I don't know how far along. Let me Google it and see if maybe I can find out. If you guys know how far along Cassie Ventura, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, who's now the number one defendant in Diddy's case, okay, testifying against Diddy, how far along is she pregnant? How far along is Cassie Ventura? Cassie Ventura announced on February 19th, 2025, that she's expecting her third child with her husband, Alex Fine. Given that she announced her pregnancy on February 19th and it's currently May 12th, she is likely in her third trimester, and her baby is expected sometime between late August and early September. She and Fine already have 2 daughters, Frankie and Sunny. Sunny's a cute name. Okay. Cassie's very much pregnant in her third trimester, due any month, like between July and August, right? So, or excuse me, August and September. Cassie needs to get up there and damn near make her water break so that, you know what I mean, she can get all the empathy and all the sympathy that she could possibly conjure up from the jurors and the judge. Okay, to where the judge leans over and is like, "Oh my God, Miss Ventura, are you okay?" And she goes, "No, I think my water broke. Oh my God." And then they say, "Okay, recess. We're going to take a short recess for Miss Cassie Ventura to please be checked out by medical." Okay, we got to get medical in here. Medic to check out Miss Cassie Ventura's situation. She's in her third trimester with her husband and their third child currently. Okay, yeah, we need that right now. Type stuff, because this is serious. If Diddy gets out of this situation, he could potentially come for Cassie's life. Because we've already heard and we know that Diddy will, come for your life if he feels like his life in any way is jeopardized or being threatened or could possibly be sabotaged by something that you think you're doing or want to do or doing, or just going against anything that he doesn't want to be happening. Cassie needs to get up there and give the best Academy Award winning testimony. Okay, like Cardi B did on Tasha K's ass. That's what Cassie needs to do to the 10th power. We're going to get back on into listening to live updates on the Diddy trial. Thank you all, tea sippers. You drop yours tea in the chat. Let me know how you feel. Please also drop those teacups in the chat. And when you do so, when you come in, remember to like and also subscribe to my channel. Thanks for sipping tea. And we're back up live with Diddy shit.
Surmised it. Now we have a definitive answer. And by the way, I think it was either the prosecution or the defense who mentioned that she's going to probably testify this week as we wonder who the first witnesses are going to be. And also this reference to Mia, who is Sean Combs' personal assistant, that is maybe going to provide some important testimony in this case. Now, before we go to the defense, real quick, as though you're looking at all these people that are behind you right now, Elizabeth, are these all reporters? Are these all fans? Are these all people who are supporting Sean Combs, who are not supporting Sean Combs? Are these just interested spectators? I'm trying to get a sense of the people that are walking behind you right now.
Yeah, so obviously I was trying not to pay attention so much because it's really so many people, but it's really just kind of a common mix. It's a lot of people who are here with the media. You know, you have field producers, you have social media producers, you know, and pretty much every outlet across the country is here right now inside that courtroom. I would say there's too many supporters beyond that one guy just kind of yelling, and he had been kind of saying some pretty vile things to us as reporters. So, you know, we're trying too much not to pay attention to him as much as possible. As far as the family goes, you know, right before we did this hit, we saw the family kind of get into a Sprinter van and kind of drive off, maybe to get something to eat, maybe to decompress, because, you know, think about it, Jesse, his children were inside that courtroom, especially his daughters were inside that courtroom, hearing about their father, you know, booking escorts and allegedly beating women and that type of sort. So maybe it was just the time that all the family members just had to get out of here, get away from this media circus. But for the most part, it's a good mix of both media and just the general public who are just genuinely curious.
So Elizabeth, I know you have to jump back into that courtroom because they're going to start up in about 15 minutes. Real quick, if you could summarize the defense's opening statement, some highlights there.
Yeah, the defense's opening statements were pretty, we were kind of expecting them. They were going to have to admit that Diddy had been physically violent towards women in the past. They were going to have to admit that Diddy had this type of temper, that, you know, he participated in taking these types of drugs, and that his temper was especially bad whenever he was on drugs and alcohol. You know, there was a point in the openings where Diddy stood up when Tenny Garagos was introducing him to the jury. For the most part, even throughout opening statements, he kind of sat there calmly. He looked at the jurors. He looked at Tenny Garagos, who again provided the opening statements on the defense's behalf. You know, the defense was kind of harping on the fact that the government has no place in his bedroom, something that we had talked about many of times, just how they're kind of painting this as somebody, you know, who did bad things on one hand, but were these bad things criminal? And that was essentially what the defense's argument was there. You know, they said that the defense will see domestic violence in this trial, but, you know, while they do take it seriously, they say it's not sex trafficking. So I feel like they're trying to divide this line between, you know, this being a domestic violence spat or domestic violence toxic relationship type of thing, as opposed to these being actual criminal acts that Diddy was allegedly committing and that type of thing. You know, the defense was saying that these alleged victims were strong, capable women, that they made choices that were for adults, they were free of choice, and they came with both pros and cons, and that type of thing. And then they were kind of talking a lot about how Diddy was jealous and how, you know, other partners or his other relationship partners. So, for example, Cassie. They also mentioned Gina, somebody I had talked about in some stories I had done. She had talked about how Diddy was physically violent with her in a podcast episode, for example. And so that was kind of her mention there beyond, you know, what the government was talking about as far as you know, alleged victims in this case and that type of sort. They had mentioned Kim Porter and how Cassie was jealous of Kim Porter's relationship with Diddy and that type of thing. And then everything kind of ended as soon as Kim Porter had passed away. Cassie went to her memorial service, and that was the last time she had seen Diddy, even prior to her expectation that she'll be inside that courtroom testifying. You know, these jurors are going to see some of these freak off videos, but they say that it was taken from Cassie's devices, not Diddy's devices. And so, you know, they talked about Mia, for example, who had worked with Diddy for a number of years. And the defense says, you know, they want jurors to evaluate her motive to testify. When they were talking about Jane Doe, it was the same thing, that this was a jealous relationship. Jane wanted to be more public, whereas Diddy, you know, he flaunted other relationships that weren't with Jane and that type of thing. So those were some of the biggest takeaways from the defense's openings, as well as the government's openings as well, too.
These are the arguments we anticipated. Now, obviously, there's a lot more detail to it. We're hearing it in an official capacity. And these jurors, while they might have heard certain aspects of this case, this is the first time, presumably, both arguments are being positioned to them for the first time in such a very particular way. And this is opening statements. It's not evidence, but it is the start, the official start of Sean Combs' criminal trial. Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much for reporting. Go back into that courthouse. Stay safe out there. There's a lot of interesting characters you're seeing running around. But thanks, Elizabeth. Appreciate it.
All right, as we are continuing to keep up with the live, very, very live coverage down to the courthouse in New York City, I want to thank everybody for sipping tea with Tanisha today. We are talking teas on Diddy. Today's his first day of trial. If you like what you're sipping today with Tanisha, please become a subscriber. Also, feel free to hit that like button. Like I said, feel free. It's free to hit that like button and also become a subscriber. Let's continue in on live P. Diddy sex trafficking trial starting today.
Okay, so here's the deal. We have another hour. We're going to be taking your questions right now on everything that happened today and everything in this case. I mentioned we had that poll about will Diddy testify. You want to know what the results are right now? 60% of you say no, 40% of you say yes. Now, we know taking the stand could be quite risky for Sean Combs and probably unlikely if you ask me, but I don't know, you don't want to just hear my legal analysis for the next hour. That's why I'm joined right now by celebrity criminal defense attorney Brian McMonagle, as we know, famously represented Bill Cosby as well. Brian, good to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time to come here on our live show.
Good to see you, Jesse.
So let me lay out what I think about the opening statements, and then you tell me what you think about the opening statements. Look, for the prosecution, they basically called him a monster, and they are going to be throwing a lot at this jury to consider. Tapes, accounts, receipts, people who worked with Diddy. There's going to be a lot to suggest that he forced people into sexual situations where there was a commercial value element to it, right? There was an exchange of money or promises. Sex workers will be called. I think that was a lot for the jury to digest. Now, if the jury doesn't necessarily look at the particulars of sex trafficking or racketeering, maybe the prosecution's got a really strong case, and we're really at the start of it. And by the way, if we believe Cassandra Ventura is going to testify and be the first witness to testify, quite compelling testimony, right? It was her account that led all of this. But when you hear the defense, and they've acknowledged that this is domestic violence, that what he did on that tape in 2016 with Cassandra Ventura is inexcusable, that this is not an episode of actual racketeering or sex trafficking, it can't meet those elements, it makes me wonder, is this a tougher case for the prosecution? I know openings are not evidence, and I didn't see it from myself. I'm basing it based on the reporting, but I think there might be something to the defense here. Am I totally crazy?
No, Jess, I mean, I think we've been talking about this for many months, which is this a situation where they made a federal case out of perhaps a lot of significant state court misconduct or crimes, but to make it a racketeering case, I always thought could potentially be a bridge too far. And we saw precisely what we expected out of the defense today after a very effective, it sounds like, prosecution argument. The defense did exactly what we thought, which is to say, hey, listen, bad conduct, at times a bad guy, but we're in the wrong courthouse. They made a federal case out of some appalling domestic violence, which they had to concede, and this were, at its worst, consensual conduct by a lot of adults, no children, a lot of adults, perhaps acting badly, among which he was one. So I think it is going to be very interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the day this jury parses charges and perhaps comes in with a compromise verdict.
We're still in the early stages, and by the way, everybody's asking right now, where's the footage? Like, why there's no cameras in the courtroom? Unfortunately, no. There are no cameras in federal courtrooms. That is the federal law right now. Those are the federal rules. I didn't make them. I think it's a big mistake, but there's always a concern. Yeah, I think that there's a mistake, but there's, concern about it improperly tainting the jury, it improperly tainting the case. I've heard the arguments, but in an effort of transparency, when there's a case of so much public interest, I think there should be cameras. There's going to be no audio. Transcripts will be released, and we're going to do something with those as well here on Law and Crime to try to do our best to put you inside that courthouse. So stay tuned on that. We have a question from Dry Roach 69. So submit your questions on YouTube.
Yay, we are going to be also sipping tea from the transcripts live from inside the courthouse. Let's get it, tea sippers. If you're a new tea sipper, welcome, welcome. Please drop teacups in the sippers chat and become a subscriber. We are listening to all things first day Diddy trial.
Right now, will tapes be shown? Yes, they will, at least based upon the prosecution's opening statement. So not only will a sample or samples of the video of Combs allegedly assaulting Cassandra Ventura in that hotel hallway back in 2016 be shown, but videos of some of the freak-offs are going to be shown where Combs will be directing the encounters. If that's the case and the jury sees that, what impact do you think that's going to have, Brian?
It's compelling. Video evidence is it's indisputable, it's undeniable, and the question will be, are these jurors prepared for it? I was trying to get a sense from Elizabeth what we saw, what we have in terms of jury composition. But some of these people are going to think, they're strangers to this planet for sure when they start seeing some of these videos and listening and hearing some of the things that you cannot deny. It's compelling evidence. Videos, they don't lie. Audios, they don't lie. They can't be cross-examined. So it's all about the spin. And we're going to see who does better at spinning some of these bad moments during the course of these trials.
We have a question from Mac Dub. What day will the first witness take the stand? Brian, I don't know now. I mean, it seems like the opening statements were relatively quick. We've seen opening statements that take a long time, take the whole day. And with a case this complicated, with so many different elements to it, I was actually surprised they got openings done before the lunch break. And I imagine we're going to hear the first witness. And who do you think that witness is going to be?
Well, I don't know who it's going to be, but you're going to hear the first witness. You're right. The brevity of these openings was somewhat stunning to me. And this judge isn't going to mess around. Let's go. You've opened. Call your first witness. Usually in these federal cases, they'll call witnesses that'll set the stage. They'll typically be FBI agents or part of the prosecution's investigatory team. We're going to set a stage, kind of a roadmap for evidence that will come. I don't think you'll see anybody significant this afternoon, but every now and then the prosecution gets really smart and they'll come out of the box with a heavy witness, trying to hope the defense isn't ready to cross-examine them. So it'll be interesting to see, but my guess is it'll be a lot of setting the stage in terms of testimony this afternoon.
We have a question from Sheila. What does the jury pool consist of? So I'm going to read you once again the reporting based on NBC. So I understand that there are 8 men, 4 women. So juror number 2, well, these are just the numbers that were assigned to them. I won't mention the jury numbers, but you have a 69-year-old man who works as an actor and massage therapist. He lives in Manhattan. A 31-year-old man who works as an investment analyst. He lives in Manhattan. A 51-year-old man who has a PhD in molecular biology and neuroscience. He too lives in Manhattan. A 30-year-old female working woman as a deli clerk. She lives with her mom and brother in the Bronx. A 42-year-old woman who is an aide in a nursing home. She lives in Manhattan. A 41-year-old man who works in communications at a correctional facility, lives in the Bronx. A 68-year-old man who's retired from working at a bank, lives in Westchester, New York. A 68-year-old man, who's retired from working at a telecommunications company. He lives in Westchester. 43-year-old woman works as a physician assistant, lives in Westchester. 39-year-old man works as a social worker, lives in the Bronx. 67-year-old man who works as a logistics analyst, lives in Westchester. And a 74-year-old woman who works as a treatment coordinator, lives in Manhattan. So again, these were the jurors that were whittled down through a week of jury selection, a week of asking questions. They had to fill out the questionnaire. They were further questioned by the court. And then both sides used their preemptory challenges. They can strike for whatever reason, just can't be based on race, gender, ethnicity, and got it down to this bunch. Anything you can glean from that, Brian, what the prosecution might have been looking for, what the defense might have been looking for, because you have ages that run the gamut. They have different careers, different occupations, different lives, live in different areas. Any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think they both got a little bit of what they wanted. I'm looking and I'm seeing molecular biologist and then deli clerk, massage therapist.
Thanks for watching. Remember to show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing. It's a blessing. Keep your teacups filled and ready for my next upload. Until then, stay inspired and remember, always stay dipping.